Stephen. Good to see you again.
Hey Greg, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to our discussion.
Absolutely.
So, Johnny, after getting your start in insurance, what inspired you to start Loadsure? How did you land on the logistics industry?
It was a bit by chance, to be honest. I come from an insurance family. My late father was a founder of a Lloyd's syndicate, and from day one, I fell into cargo and logistics, following in those footsteps. Like a lot of people in insurance, you either fall into it or you know somebody in it, and obviously
Yeah.
I was the latter, and it was generally by chance over 18 years ago that logistics and freight insurance was the going role at the time, and I stuck with it ever since. And I love the whole complexity and the moving parts of the supply chain, and just also the people that we get to meet within it. It's just a fascinating industry.
Yeah, well, you certainly are filling a unique need as the industry evolves.
Yeah, and yeah, that's what the reason I started Loadsure. Insurance has been very guarded to technology. It's very much a relationship game, and relationships are still very important to the industry. But it's the data that is also now incredibly valuable to make sure that we produce sustainable, dynamic products. And without data, we're unable to do that. And that's what Loadsure's here to do, is to provide scalable, dynamic insurance products that are able to grow with your customers, grow with the entities, and not create a barrier for entry. So that's where we are. Yeah, Greg, I'd love to hear, obviously, how you got into the logistics industry and your background.
Well, I actually started out in the military as an Army infantry officer, and after several years and several deployments, I left active duty and found myself in the consulting industry, looking at operations and strategy across a number of different industries. At first, I thought that trucking and logistics would be a nice, simple industry to get involved in, not knowing a whole lot about the corporate world on my transition out of the military. I figured how simple to move things from A to B, and found that it's incredibly complex and incredibly difficult to make all of that happen. But after 6 or 7 years of working with a number of different companies across the supply chain, I've focused more and more on the new technology and the disruptive trends that are impacting the industry, as we see this very large industry that is ripe for some of these applications of new technology, whether we're talking about big data, AI, autonomous driving, and so on. That ultimately brought me in touch with DAT, sitting at the center of the North American trucking industry, and at the center of the spot market through the load board and freight rates, and looking at how some of those disruptive trends were going to impact not only that overall industry, but the DAT model for freight match. I had the opportunity to come and join the team at DAT, which sits at the center of the North American truckload industry. And we see a ton of data. And what I think is interesting, not only with what DAT does, but also with what Loadsure is able to do, is take in all of that data and put it in front of the customer, in this case a broker or a carrier, so that they can make very quick and appropriate decisions. All that data isn't helpful when it's in a data file sitting somewhere, but it's incredibly helpful if you're able to bring out those insights and put them in front of the customer at the right point in time.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that we're so pleased and honoured to be working with DAT in the fact of the data piece is so important for us. We're providing this affordable and scalable insurance product, which if you look at the traditional insurance that's out there today, there's rising costs all over the place. Insurance is contributing to that, and we're here to ultimately tear up that traditional rule book and bring in AI and automation to show that insurance should be there to support businesses and show that insurance is affordable and scalable. So, that's the mutual benefit of this partnership.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're thrilled to be bringing Loadsure products to DAT customers. So can you talk me through how the data, how the AI comes to help in moving a load and insuring a load? How is it different than the traditional products, and how do you see it evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you start with the traditional methods of underwriting, you will analyze a historical book of business, and you will apply an average rate which underwriters believe to be sustainable for the next 12 months for the future of those shipments that are being placed under an annual cover. And so what we've done is we've, as I mentioned, sort of teared up the rule book. We provided the ability to underwrite at a granular level, and therefore we're providing the ability to purchase insurance on a usage base. So buying insurance as and when you need it, not if you need it, with no minimum premiums, no upfront costs, just there in your platform as and when you're exposed to the risk that you believe that you need to provide or procure insurance for. And to do that, we have had to obviously evaluate and analyse vast amounts of historical data.
Sure.
And that has enabled us to go to market with our pricing, which has ultimately had the huge acquisition costs of the human involvement taken out of it, and therefore there's an instant saving there. But we don't stop there either, because we don't want to provide a flat rate. We always want to be looking at ways to discount our rate, to bring that price down. And the only way to do that is to underwrite in real time at that shipment level. So as and when a shipment is being booked, that shipment has its own profile. And for us, we take that data in real time, put it through our pricing engine, put it through the predictive analytics, and then we provide in less than a second a price that is able to meet that risk profile and to be able to provide that very cost-effective pricing. So that contractually we are obviously always there to provide the insurance, and that is there at a click of a button.
Yeah, I love that analogy of tearing up the playbook with the latest and greatest tools and technology that we have available today.
It's been a long time coming, Greg, as well, and there's a lot of underinsurance in the freight industry. We believe it's between 80 and 90% because of the freight brokers, the shippers, just reliant on a liability policy. Liability policies are generally there to protect the carrier, and they're limited liability. They're not full invoice value. So what our product here is to protect that actual cargo on a first party basis. We give all risk coverage, which includes things like acts of God, infidelity, and many other sort of losses that are generally excluded from a carrier's policy. So it's all about peace of mind and having that first party policy without having to pick up a phone or just run the risk.
So it's peace of mind, but it also makes great business sense. So when you say that the industry is underinsured, that certainly sounds like a major risk that is borne by the shipper or the broker or the carrier or some combination of the three. But how does getting more insurance actually make good business, cost-effective business sense?
Obviously the reason that our product is available is because at the end of the day you want to protect your balance sheet. The cargo owners, that they're in a very fragile situation. So you want to make sure that when your goods are being moved from A to B, that they are fully insured, but also fully insured. And in the event of a fortuity, that claim is settled relatively quickly, or as quickly as possible. If you look at going back to the traditional methods of the insurance process, claims handling is very time consuming. And it can take up to 120 days, especially filing against a carrier's liability. Whereas, obviously, you've got to run that risk of being out of pocket for up to 120 days. You're also running the risk of actually not receiving full invoice value because it's limited liability. You're also running the risk of not actually being able to prove any negligence. So, our policy, going back to the sort of the status of our policy, it's a first party policy, so it's a response first and puts that claimant back in that financial situation as quickly as possible. And again, we use predictive analytics and machine learning through the claims handling process, and we have all the data. That's again going back to this partnership. We know exactly where the goods are. We know exactly who's involved in the process, and that speeds up the claims handling because it feeds into our decision engine and is able to then settle claims incredibly quickly. And I think that is what the industry needs. And gone are the days of having inflated premiums to cover transactional insurance. We're here usage-based insurance to really bring that product to market. And I suppose one thing that we're mindful of, being a digital native, and obviously DAT see it all the time, is this complete evolution of the supply chain, the automation that is happening in the supply chain. Every week, every month, it's getting more and more. I've seen it from my 18 years as being a logistics insurance broker. What are you seeing in the supply chain, and how is it evolving, and how is it bringing value?
Yeah, I agree with you that things are moving on a very rapid basis, both in consulting in the logistics industry, and now in my role with DAT in developing the long-term DAT strategy. We look at a number of different trends or technologies, and any assessment we make has a shelf life of about 6 months maximum, because things continue to evolve and change, and the landscape and the players out there continue to grow. So, one of the biggest things that impacts the DAT platform is the concept of the digital freight match, going from posting a load. Of course, if we look at the overall trucking market, you have a lot of loads that are moved on a contract basis, but then in the spot market where DAT plays, everything is on a per load basis, and I think that's actually where we're a great fit with the Loadsure product, because it's also looking at that per load basis. But traditionally, there's a load posted, a carrier search, or a truck posted and a broker search, and a number of phone calls go back and forth until the broker and the carrier identify, negotiate, and find a match. The digital freight match, it definitely feels at times like there are new processes to tear up the rule book, as you say. But then if you look and follow really closely day to day, it feels like it's a bit more of a gradual evolution. And the digital natives in the freight match space are definitely driving that conversation forward. But we also see many, if not all of our customers following the same trends very closely to leverage that technology and make what could be a very time-consuming process with 5 or 6 or 10 different phone calls back and forth just to book one single load into a quick, nearly instantaneous process where there's still a human making that judgment. There's still the human relationship component, but that human is informed by a whole lot of data crunched by some very high-powered tools and presented with information that helps inform them of the decisions that they're making. And when you're doing that at a few loads a day, or dozens of loads a day, or thousands of loads a day, and that's your full-time job, as we see with our broker customers and our carrier customers, every bit of efficiency really drives out a lot of what they're able to accomplish and what they're able to earn.
Yeah, and it's such a resonating sort of, story on the insurance side as well. We're both from human-centric industries. It's that human nurturing piece is still massively important, but it's also massively important to arm yourself with the right data. It's arm yourself with the right products, and to arm yourself with the right products that are evolving with the world and keeping up with the world and being dynamic. And I think that it is so important for tech companies to ultimately remain human centric. And I talk quite often about the pandemic and the experience that we've all had sort of working remotely. And at the start of the pandemic, we were very much about this is we don't need that human element. This is how we're going to operate. Virtual meetings were the way forward, and the face-to-face element was no longer needed. But as you go through that, you realise you're human beings at the end of the day, and you need that human nurturing. And it's great that we're completely aligned on that. Both DAT and Loadsure, it is making sure that we remain human-centric but data-driven, and providing those tools.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, our next fireside chat will have to be in London, so we can meet in person as opposed to virtual chat.
Absolutely. I'm still not able to fly across the pond just yet, but
Yeah.
hopefully soon. But
One day. Well, the occasionally you hear the fear of automation and process automation or AI, and it can come across as replacing humans. And for the folks who have those jobs today, who have built up the expertise, who maintain those relationships, that can be quite threatening.
yeah,
Um, I mentioned in the freight match space, we really see this evolving, digital freight match as a trend evolving as enabling uh, those human workers who are building up the expertise in brokerage or in driving a truck, just to make that transaction more efficiently, and ultimately, accomplish more, spend more time doing the work that they that they enjoy, and less time on some of the administrative tasks that can be automated. So whether we're talking about digital freight match, whether we're talking about autonomous technology in the cab of the truck, the way that things seem to be evolving on a day-to-day basis is just as you say, it's enabling that human who has that relationship and that touch point, because at the end of the day, that's the piece that continues to allow the businesses to operate well and to grow.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also, especially from our side, on the insurance side, it's important that we, show the value in insurance, and
Mhm.
insurance shouldn't just be a piece of paper. It should also be, there to support and educate and to advise, and that's something that's really important. And we've shown that in the way that we've developed our technology, but also we want to make sure that volume transactional business
Mhm.
is not needed to be touched by human hands. And to be honest, from our side, isn't really touched by human hands. It's just avoided.
Mhm.
And small brokers, small carriers, small shippers are forced into a one-dimensional insurance product, and that doesn't enable anyone to grow or
Mhm.
evolve. So, you know, we don't believe that we are here to completely disrupt the market from a sort of replacing job perspective. We're here to bring value to the community and the transportation community, but also bring value to the insurance community and show how sustainable underwriting can be. And the pain points of these peaks and troughs of rising prices and being unable to sort of control the rise of insurance
Mhm.
is and should be a thing of the past. So I think, well, I certainly believe in the insurtech, fintech world.
Yep.
You're going down the wrong path if you believe that technology is purely going to eradicate the need of human interaction.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, the Loadsure product and many of these advances in technology is not actually replacing human tasks today. It's not even changing human tasks today. It's bringing completely new capabilities to small businesses that otherwise wouldn't have the scale to do much besides write a blanket policy that covers them for the 12-month period.
Yeah. Yeah, and those, the large upfront costs,
Mhm.
cash flow is fragile when you're small. So it's about managing your cash flow. It's also about protecting your cash flow as well, and sort of being a balance sheet protector is how we describe ourselves. But
And you also just enabling these decisions, enabling this type of analysis. We've talked about the sheer volume of data that's available today, and that the leading companies are really able to work with and to analyze and to enable that decision making. But of course, as soon as you start talking about data, you get into privacy concerns or just concerns around the trust. How are you gathering my data? What are you doing with my data? DAT's been in this game for 43 years, collecting, gathering this data, and takes the responsibility of maintaining that trust with our customers and being a good shepherd of that data, so that it's utilized in a anonymized and aggregated way for the benefit of that customer. And when we think about partnerships, that's absolutely one of, if not the top criteria. Is this a brand that has built a hard-earned similar reputation of trust with the customer because they take these issues seriously? And I think that's absolutely what we've seen and heard from the full history of Loadsure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at the forefront of our mission, and our community which we serve, which is the transportation industry, is that's what we're here to do, and to deliver sustainable, cost-effective insurance that meets and molds the whole industry rather than just a proportion of it. And that's what DAT are allowing us to do with your customers. So it's very exciting. And there's one area we sort of talked about is the sort of replacing jobs and with automation, and obviously the nervousness around that. We see in our industry a lot of change with regards to people's roles, and obviously we've already touched on sort of bringing more efficient tools to allow ultimately people to do their job better and more efficiently, etc. How do you see the roles changing through automation and digitalization of the industry for the likes of the brokers, the shippers, and obviously the carriers as well?
Well, one area that's changing rapidly is not only the availability of data, but the connectedness of that data. So, as an example, if you are a shipper and you have a container that's moving around the world, well, it might go onto a cargo ship, and then you don't hear about it for a few weeks, and then it pops up into a port, and maybe it goes on a truck, maybe it goes on the railroad, and you don't hear about it for a few days. And it's not that nobody knows where that load is, the status of that load. It's that the people who know the location and the status aren't able to provide that information, at least traditionally able to provide that information to everyone else who can use that to their benefit. And this is one of several areas where DAT is really trying to stay right at the forefront, either through our own developments or through our partners of automation. So as we see new and more appropriately priced insurance products, as we see new technology in fuel with dynamic pricing that changes not only from day to day but throughout the day, as we see visibility solutions that allow the shipper, the broker, and the carrier to know exactly where each of these loads are around, on the road or around the world, is all feeding together into this increasingly connected picture. Now, no one has solved the full connected picture, to tie together, from the insurance world, maybe it's the carrier safety record combined with from the shipper or the broker information, the value of that particular load, combined with some of the GPS data to know that it's in a secure lot overnight, as opposed to parked on an entryway or on the side of the road because the parking spaces are full. So I think that it's the volume of data as we've been discussing, but it's also pulling together the different sources of data that's really enabling the people in each of those seats, shipper, broker, and carrier, to have a much more complete picture of how freight is moving and how to move it more efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. And all that data enables us to be dynamic with our pricing. Going back to the traditional methods of underwriting, you're applying one rate to millions of shipments, but actually each shipment has a different profile, and you've just highlighted that. One shipment might be laid up on the side of the road overnight. One shipment or one truckload might be in a very secure compound. Why should that cargo be insured at the same price? Why when a cargo being moved, for example, from A to B, it going through different states, but also going through different seasonality, or the seasonalities coming into play, different road types, different drivers' behaviour, and none of that is taken into the underwriting concept on the traditional side, and it creates a risk profile, and therefore with that data you have the ability to be far more accurate with your pricing. And gone are the days of sort of your technical price and what we call your underwriting price. The underwriting price is where there is that fat in it, ultimately, to sort of weigh out and sort of getting your annual rate slightly wrong. Whereas with more visibility, you're able to get far closer to that technical price. And you don't just stop there either. We're not just talking about cargo. We're talking about how insurance products for the supply chain should be dynamic. And I think one of the biggest things for the supply chain is the way that it is automating. It's seeing huge changes in risk. You look at the number of incidents that are occurring, whether it's domestically or maritime incidents. They're all. I'd say that the frequency is more controlled, that there is better risk management, and that's something that's really important for insurance companies to be proactive in. But what we are seeing is a massive increase in the severity of losses. You look at the Ever Given, you look at all the container losses, you look at the nuclear verdicts, for example. The risk profiles are changing because of automation, and it is so important that insurance keeps up with that and is dynamic enough to adjust to these ever-changing risks.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The components of some of the pieces that you talked about. Where are you operating in a region? What's going on in terms of weather? Is there a winter storm on the horizon? Is there a hurricane on the horizon? These are events that cause a significant spike in the spot rate for the price to move a load going through or around some of those areas. And traditionally, that price will move as a reaction to the event. But at the same time, we have better weather forecasting. We have better modeling capabilities. All the while, as you mentioned, some of these patterns are changing to the point where we're seeing more frequency and more severity. So, the opportunity to take what is currently perhaps you have a different insurance rate because you operate out of southern Florida during hurricane season. But now you can actually have, if you're taking a load that's headed out of that region, then you might have a lower rate. And if you're coming from the center of the country towards that region, then you might want to make sure that that load has the appropriate coverage. So those are some of the things that are changing, not only the dynamics that are closer to DAT's core in terms of freight rates, but also the insurance products. Anything else that's on the horizon that's you see over the next couple of years starting to enter into that equation?
So from an insurance perspective,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So from our standpoint, we want to make sure that insurance is dynamic enough to adjust with and to be part of this ever-changing environment. And I suppose with automation happening at the speed in both industries, it's going to be a very interesting time to see how, especially insurance won't just be a piece of paper anymore. It's going to have to deliver more. It's going to have to deliver active risk management, and also it's going to have to really deliver on a pricing perspective as well. You can't continuously see these really aggressive cycles that are going on, and there's no need for that. So it is really important to continue, especially from an insurance standpoint, to keep up with this automation of the supply chain and constantly manage these ever changing risks. And from our perspective, it's all about distribution being there when needed. It's being able to provide that affordable pricing and accurate pricing, and the claims handling side as well. That is the only time our clients see the real value in insurance is how they are reimbursed in the event of a claim, and that's something that's really important to us, and we want to show that value, and it's something that's part of Loadsure, and a big piece that we want to obviously work with DAT on is that active risk management side, and build our product range to meet your clients' needs, and that goes back to us being very customer centric and listening to the end customers and delivering what they want, and we can't do that though without the data and the insights that we obviously need to put into our engines and to be able to really deliver on our promise.
And one of the things that's really exciting about that is the shift that we're seeing from a reactive basis to a real-time basis to a predictive basis. DAT has had a rate view product for a number of years, which is a very detailed reporting on what the rate has been over the past couple of days on a given lane. And last year we rolled out Rate Cast, which gives the same detailed reporting, but instead of an analysis of what the rate has been over the past few days. It's actually looking to what the rate will be over the next couple of days out to a couple of weeks. And as we all know, that rate is not the only factor in making those decisions, because you have other components like weather, like fuel, and like insurance. And I think as we look to provide that predictive data to help our customers, Loadsure is absolutely the right partner to work with to bring that full package with insurance and everything else.
Absolutely, and it's important for us. We've touched on it a few times. Just talking now is that the spot market and the ever-changing rates within the spot market, and everyone's on a tight margin, and traditionally insurance doesn't budge, but the insurance should be also following those trends, and the way that we can do that is obviously being part of that that data pipeline, and to make sure that our pricing is more in line with the way that the market trends are going. And again, it's utilizing that data in ways that the traditional underwriting has never been able to utilize data, and it's important for us to follow those trends to make sure that insurance is sustainable, and the right coverage is in place. We want to make sure that insurance is fully automated, forgotten, but implemented and then forgotten, and there when a futurity occurs. So it's really becoming fully in tune with the industry, and working very close with the industry players to really monitor that.
Yeah, that's great.
I think one thing that everyone sort of talks about is where there is this rapid digitalization and automation. Where do you see, and where does DAT see the industry in, say, 10 years' time?
Well, as we've talked about, things are evolving on a rapid basis. But I think what is fascinating to watch and helpful to remember is that the core operation of moving physical goods is not changing. The efficiency with which we're able to do that, and the way that we're able to connect that data is changing. Obviously, we have a number of trends that are starting to converge. So whether that's the use of data and analytics, as we've been talking about, whether that's the rise of autonomous technology to what today often helps assist drivers to ultimately taking on some of the driving tasks for those routes, which we have a driver shortage across the U.S. as many people have been reporting on for years. And just as we were talking about with some of the AI technology enabling the human, here I think autonomous technology, as it rolls out, will start to take on some of those least desirable tasks. The long haul, straight routes that are not only time consuming, but also take that driver away from home for nights at a time. And then I think the connectivity continues to evolve everybody's model, so that the shipper is able to have more information about how their freight is moving and how their freight is matching. The broker is able to pair up with the shipper directly, and then that ultimately lands on the carrier to move those loads. as this plays out over the next 10 years, I definitely think that we have a real opportunity in these highly fragmented industries working together. You have a very long tail in shipper among shippers. You have a very long tail of small brokerages, and then you have probably the longest tail of small carriers and specifically owner operators. I think the efficiency across that whole system, whether you're talking about some of the autonomous driving in the cab, or you're talking about several of those players having the same common picture, is enabling many owner operators to work together to move loads head haul and back haul without empty and while reducing empty miles. I think you have a lot of those opportunities for these small businesses to remain small businesses, but it's enabling that cooperation in the context of their competition, so that everybody operates more effectively.
Yeah, no, I think efficiency is going to be the big change, and couldn't agree more that these fragmented processes in both industries will be the place where change happens most. I from an insurance standpoint, I see that insurance will become an embedded solution, especially for high volume, low complexity risk. I see that gone are the days of waiting for picking up a phone to your insurance broker for spike insurance, for ultimately transactional needs. They will be part of your daily workflow, and I think it's going to be very exciting to see how technology really grips the insurance industry and transforms it to keep up and keep pace with the industries that it serves.
Well, Johnny, always a great discussion. Appreciate you sharing all the latest from Loadsure. We're thrilled to be partnered with you to bring the current Loadsure products to DAT customers, and we're looking forward to what's to come.
Well, Greg, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I just want to say what a pleasure it is to partner with you and your team and DAT. It's such a great cultural fit for us. We are, as we've already said, sort of community focused. Making sure that our customers come first and are tooled with the right information to make the right decisions, and to have value-added services that are within their daily reach, removing any fragmentation or any inefficiencies. And that is something that's so important to us. And working with DAT is allowing us to continue to build our community and support and nurture. And I just thank you, and very excited about what we will achieve as a team with these new innovative insurance products.
Excellent. Likewise, looking forward to the next event this Thursday.
Yeah, looking forward to it's always a blast.